My name is Gords, also known as MC Whizzkid. Welcome to Series 1 of the Pod Noodle. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my gosh, today is a glorious day, and not only is it actually being recorded on a Friday, which of course is always a glorious day, but today we have one of the finest DJs of any genre in the world sat right here on my screen. Now, this guy has been voted numerous times the world #1 hardcore DJ. He's had music on films, radio. He is remixed for pop stars. He tours the world. And not only that, he's one of our own, ladies and gentlemen. This is a guy that really has grown up in the roots of hardcore and rave music. And also, he is just a beautiful, beautiful human being that I'm very, very proud to call one of my best friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the absolute legend that is DJ Gammer. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. Apart from a bit of hay fever, I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
Oh, bless you. Do you know, everyone is suffering with this hay fever thing. Like, even I've got 3 kids, and even my daughter has got the sniffles, man. Is it kicking you?
It's absolutely. I feel like every year it gets more severe, but I'm on those big tablets now. Ooh. And I'm having to take 2 a day just to sort of feel any kind of relief.
Oh my God, it's literally horrible. See, my main problem is because I too, because I'm old, I also suffer with it. I never used to when I was younger, actually, but now I'm old, I seem to get it. But I'm on the daily little ones that you buy from like Boots or Tesco's or whatever. But my main problem is I'll take them for a couple of days, feel better, and then forget to take them the next day, and then I'm back to sort of square one. So I'm sort of struggling with the hustle, to be honest with you, man. But anyway, I'm sure people haven't tuned in to listen to us talk about our illnesses. What they have tuned into here is your story, man, and what an inspirational story it is, Matt. It's just phenomenal. So let's whisk you all the way back to being, I guess, a young kid, and it's no secret. Dougal talked about on his interview about how you got your DJ name. For those of you that haven't listened to that episode, dip back into the DJ Dougal, skim through to the Gamma section where he talks about Matt at great length and talks about his DJ name. However, it's no secret that the name Gamma is also obviously derived from being a gamer. So talk me through those early sort of years. Gaming in your bedroom, like, what was that? Where were you at, man, back then?
Well, I mean, if you want to go right back to the start, we can go before the gaming.
I would love to, man. Go for it. I'm all ears. I'm just going to sit here quietly. Go for it. Tell me about it, man.
Okay. Well, as far as my relationship with music's always been important to me, even since from my genuine earliest memories. I remember I was obsessed with just borrowing family members' Walkmans and just putting on any tape they had. And I remember listening to artists like Peter Gabriel or Michael Jackson and just getting these goosebumps, right? I guess I felt real connection to it. So from that earliest memory, I always wanted to do music because I wanted to pass the feeling I got from listening to music onto other people. And I'd made my mind up. By the time I was 5, I always said to my mum and my dad, when I'm older, I'm going to do music. And I even had a little shoebox recorder, and I used to just sing little melodies into it. And that was that. That was it. My mind was made up on making music. Fast forward to my, I want to say early teenage years. I was very heavily into video games, Super Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, all that sort of stuff. And oh my God, there's so much stuff I could claim over here.
Please do.
Yeah. So I'm sort of around my early teenage years. I'm really into video games, as I said. And I remember one day I went into my brother's room for something, can't remember, and I saw a tape on the side that said Hardcore Heaven, DJ Druid. I remember putting that tape on, and the first song that came on was Steam Train by Dougal, that I didn't know the name of at the time, but I just thought this is wicked. It's so fast, it's so fun. And I listened to that one tape back to back to back, and I never knew what the music was. I just thought it was I used to just call it rave music. I don't know where I heard the term, but I'm like, yeah, this is rave music. This is great. And that's all I'd listen to. So I'd be, have my headphones in, I'd be listening to that tape whilst playing video games. And that was pretty much like the bulk of my, childhood, teen years was video games, listening to music. And then one day, my brother gave me a CD, and it's Bonkers. I think I want to say Bonkers 6 or 7, DJ Dougal, and he's like, "That's Dougal, that's Dougal." I didn't know who Dougal was, but my brother was saying it as though it was such a big deal. I was like, "Yeah, let's put it on," and I put it on. Captured was the first song. Listened to that back to back. Absolutely loved it. And like my sort of early creativity was really like, I was so curious about everything. So my mum got me my first PC. It was this battered old thing that would take like 10 minutes to load, and I'd be there. I used to mess around actually making like prototype video games. I'd be learning graphic design. I'd be teaching myself to program websites. And then the early sort of production software dropped. I think the first all-in-one PC solution called Reason dropped. And I just taught myself to make music on there. I just figured it out, and I'd just make music. And pretty uneventful from there. Just messing around, playing video games, making music, And then one day, we're sitting around the dinner table eating, and Dougal's name comes up so nonchalantly, like, "Oh, did you see Dougal today, Mum?" Yeah, I saw him. I looked up, I said, "What? You know Dougal?" She's like, "Yeah, I helped do his ironing for him."
Wow.
I was like, "You know Dougal? No way!" And it was the most random thing. She managed to sort it was like a work experience day. So one of my mum's close friends was the guy working with Dougal at the time. He was called Innovate and also TKM. And he got me a day off. He got me a day off school, and I went and sat round Dougal's house while they mixed an album. And it was my first time meeting Dougal, who he had the long hair then, and I thought he looked exactly like his album cover. And I remember walking into his house and sitting in that studio, and I did not say a word. I was so starstruck and in awe of all these gadgets around me, and just watching the process. And, I don't think I made any kind of impression, to be honest, but it was just really cool to see. Didn't think much of it. Anyway, this is where it sort of intertwines with a Dougal story, I guess, that, I'm making songs and I'm playing games and whatever. And I'm sitting there. I wasn't much of an outgoing person in my early years. Anyone who knows me knows I'm actually outside the persona. I'm quite reserved and quiet and keep to myself. And it's one summer holiday. I'm sitting up in my bedroom with this sort of makeshift Frankenstein gaming studio set up. Hair's flipping greasy, hasn't been cut in good knows how long. I'm sitting there in my absolute rags, curtains are shut. I'm playing Counter-Strike, which is just this like aggressively online competitive shooter. And the door opens, and in walks Dougal, right? But he never said nothing. He just sort of came in and took a look at me and went, "You all right?" And I looked back and went, "You all right?" And he walked downstairs, and I thought, hold on, is that Dougal? So I go down to the kitchen, and he's standing there, and he's saying, I really like this song you did. We should get together and do something. And that was the very start of the journey. That he would just come round my house. We had another computer downstairs. We'd sit there with these diddly little speakers, just making music, and that was kind of the start of not only our relationship together, but my journey into the world of professional music.
That's mad. So to get this sort of straight, so I can sort of visualize it, right? You're this sort of, I'm going to use a silly word now, but not an outcast, but you're sort of keeping yourself to yourself. You're sort of sitting in the darkened bedroom like a lot of teenagers do, and you're playing all these crazy games, and you're so immersed. And to get this right, you somehow get hold of Reason, and then kind of master it. Is that right? Is that fair to sort of summarize it like that? How would you?
That is exactly it. There was no YouTube or anything in those days. I mean, the internet was still pretty much in its infancy, and I'm not saying this to showboat, but genuinely, I just taught myself the software. I just once I figured out the piano grid and if you put that there, that's the time and it will play. My weird brain just kind of put the pieces together and figured it out, and that comes down to sound design and everything.
That's amazing. That's such an early age as well, because I mean, I'm going to come to it a bit later, because when I met you were still a teenager, but this is even before that, and it's kind of hard to visualize. I mean, quite clearly from early, this was going to be your path, wasn't it? This was what you were meant to do. I mean, if it hadn't been music, perhaps it would have been, game design or something like that. But this was sort of mapped out for you almost from such an early age.
Yeah, I mean, I just had it in my head that music was that was just, I'd always be thinking of melodies and little ideas, and it's just always what I wanted to do, like first and foremost above everything.
Amazing. Have you ever told? I mean, obviously both of us are friends / acquaintances with Druid. Does he know that you are the first? He was the first DJ that you ever heard. Does Druid?
I have told him many years ago, and he seemed quite. I remember he seemed quite sort of touched and honoured by it.
Yeah, man, I would be as well. Imagine that, like the guy that goes on to tour the world, like you were the first guy. I mean, to be fair, Druid has always been a hidden jewel in the crown of hardcore, hasn't he?
Fully agree.
His tracks back in the day were absolutely amazing. His mixing, even on vinyl, was just so smooth and clean, and he's just a lovely guy, isn't he? He's just a lovely. Shout out to Davey, man, Davey Druid. Hicksy actually gave Druid a shout out as well when we spoke to Hicksy. He's a don, but I think that's wicked. As you say, later you went on to listen to Dougal songs, and who knew that you'd end up sort of being in partnership with this guy, this icon of the 90s. It's a really inspiring story, man. So talk to me about, right, so as we go through, right, kid in his bedroom, really good at game, clearly natural at picking up software and programs. And for those that don't know, if you've never opened a music program, I mean, to be fair, in 2024, you can drag samples around. Programs like Logic, Bitwig, Cubase, they're a lot more accessible and easy to get started. But we're talking, 10, 20 years ago, man. This is we're going back a bit now, and it was a lot more complex. So immediately you've sort of aced something that is quite complicated back in those days. It was complicated now, but back then it was even worse, right? And you've ended up listening to this music. You've then linked up with the guy that makes the music. Talk to me about, was commercial music ever on the radar for you? Because, I would argue some of your melodies and chord structures, the vocals that you bring to hardcore, dubstep, house, whatever it is you turn your creative hands to, they're very accessible. And what I mean by that is that you don't have to just be into sort of happy hardcore to resonate with your songs. You don't have to just be into dubstep. They sort of have got that commercial appeal. Would you say that's because of the Peter Gabriel and the Michael Jackson stuff that you were listening to? Are you influenced by popular culture? How does that sort of happen?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's a real loaded question. But
it is, man.
Sort of break this down. So I don't... sorry. As far as like the commercial / underground direction, I didn't really have either one in mind. I think at a certain point along the way, I knew dance music I felt like it was calling me, because mid to late 90s, you remember how big trance music was. It was all over the radio. Yeah. It was all over Top of the Pops. And I remember tracks like ATB, 9 p.m. and Guriella. They were so euphoric, and they gave me that similar feeling. I guess it's like the euphoria was the big term being coined at the time, but they gave me that feeling. But I also really enjoyed the, frankly, the repetitive nature of the drums and the beats and the build up and the drop. I like the structured nature of it built around these melodies.
Yeah.
So at a certain point, I knew that dance music was what I wanted to do. This tied in with DJing. You'd see a lot of DJs on TV around that time, and I had no idea what they were doing, but it looked really cool. That was it. I thought it looks really cool. I didn't know what they did or anything like that, but it just looked awesome. And so, when I taught myself to use the software, it was dance music generally I was making. I would try and mess around with like making little rock beats and hip hop beats. I dabbled in a bit of UK garage, but the dance music is where it really came together, because I kind of saw it like almost like a game of Tetris. It's like making things fit, putting things together to create this whole sort of piece. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just nuts, man. Like, you're looking at making a song like playing Tetris. It's just, I
would just think of melodies. I found the programming of what I found. If I could think of something, I could get it down in the software quite quickly. So, I don't know. I just, I never really. I mean, obviously, I met Dougal, and that kind of carried me into the rave world. It was never my plan, but it was never against my plans either. I guess at that young age, I was just kind of, we're free thinkers when we're younger, so I just went with the flow of it.
Yeah.
And just saw out where it take me. Me and Paul did we did dabble around a lot with commercial stuff, and we did have some successes. There was a song that we had a music video for. We landed on some commercial albums. We even did some we did it took us to some random places, but we did some other sort of projects that were completely left field from what I ever thought I would do, but it was just really cool. It was just really cool to just go with that flow, I guess.
So, taking you out of the bedroom, then the next step, I suppose, was having a live experience. Do you remember?
Yes.
Talk to me about the first time that was it with Dougal? Did you go with friends, your mum? Talk to me about that.
So it's really funny, because now that we're talking about it, my journey into DJing, the rave scene, hardcore, all of that was kind of done the complete opposite way of most people. The first time I ever went to a rave, I was still in school at the time.
Yeah.
I think I was in my last year of school, and Doug said, Matt, I want you to come with me to a rave. I want you to see what it's all about. Because he taught me more than just making music. He wanted to show me about how crowds work and track selection and things like that. So he said, come with me. I think you'll be really inspired. And it was, I want to say it was Slamming Vinyl. It was in an April. I want to say maybe 2001.
Amazing.
Still at the Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And I went and I watched. I will never forget. We walked into the Sanctuary, and he went, "Gams, I hope you're ready for this." And he opened the door. That's when drum and bass was in the Sanctuary in the main room.
Yeah.
And he opened the door, and the whistles, the noise, the screaming. I had never heard anything like it. And I said I was a real nervous, quiet, keep to myself kid, but the energy and excitement I felt was just immediate. And then the first thing he did was he played an old school set upstairs in the old sweatbox.
Yeah.
And that was my first time hearing that 93 to 95 kicks over breakbeats, stars, pianos, pitch vocals, that kind of stuff. And I loved it. I discovered old school right after everything.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. Just everybody up there having a good time. It was incredible. And then he went and played in Rollers as well, and he played our songs out, and it was just great to see. And then as soon as I was out of school, every weekend I was with him. I was like, Paul, can I come with you this weekend? Can I come with you this weekend? We went up and down the country. We talked for hours in the car. I'd ask him questions. He'd go and play his set. I got to see all that and experience, I discovered things like Now Is a Time, like years and years after they've been made. I just watch him play and go, what's that? What's that song? And it was just crazy. He'd be doing like three, 4 shows a night, and we'd just be going all up and down the country together. And I'd learn the other side of music, which was really, really insightful. I have to give Paul a big up. I owe a lot to him, a lot.
It's mad. Imagine that though, because for me, I remember before Whizzkid. Because in the end, as you will well know, Matt, I was at the Sanctuary every single week, like it was a different brand in there every week. I was doing all different sets from happy hardcore to techno to jungle to the main room to the second room to the outside in the near the burger van. I was there all the time. But if I go all the way back and to the first time that I ever went there, like you, I wasn't old enough, and I went with some of the older lads from the gang, I suppose, that I was in, and I went in the boot of their car, right? So when we got there, that's how little I was, and they opened the boot, and I remember, obviously, we didn't get the VIP treatment or anything like that. We had to queue, to get in, and I remember the whole building used to vibrate, didn't it? So you'd sort of hear the bass of drum and bass or the off of hardcore or whatever, and it was sort of like vibrate the iron of the building, and it would go as you sort of yes. and then you'd open those double doors to what was like, do you know in the original Willy Wonka when they go into the factory and it's all like beautiful and you can eat the flowers and the grass and you can drink the river, and it was just like opening the doors to this magical place, this sort of wonderland of ravers and music and lights and bass.
Exactly that.
So when you're saying that, man, I can only imagine going there for the first time with someone, who at that time was uber famous. I went there as a humble raver to pay and go and see people like Dougal, but you're actually arriving with Dougal for your first ever rave. And was it weird? Like, is a question I bet you've never asked, right? Obviously, you've turned up with Dougal, right? And you've gone upstairs to the happy hardcore room, where, of course, he is one of the main people in that room, because as he's it's no secret that Dougal is part of the whole rave legacy. At that point, did you think, Christ, this guy's mad famous? Because I'm sure he must. I know mobile phones weren't a thing, and people used to have those little wind-up disposable cameras. But people must have been like pecking his head as soon as you arrived.
He was swamped everywhere he went. He got swamped. Even just walking from one room to the other, it would take 10 times the amount of time it should do, because he'd be getting stopped by everyone. And it was cool just to be a part of that and just to see it. Like, oh shit, this guy is like, he's up there.
It must have been mad, especially at your age at the time.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it, and it was it gave me more drive, if anything.
The boy in the bedroom becomes the guy on the decks. Talk to me a little bit about how you went from sort of being with Dougal, producing tunes in your bedroom, to actually, being one of the people on the lineup. What was that like, man?
That was almost like a separate journey in and of itself. But obviously, as I'd mentioned, I'd wanted to get into DJing. Didn't really understand it, but, it looked cool. So at a certain point, I started going around to Dougal's studio, and we were doing stuff together. And I sort of worked up all the courage to say, hey, could you... do you think you could teach me how to mix? He was more than happy. He threw up a couple of records for me. I want to say one of them was Elysium, which, one of my favorite songs of all time. I can't remember what the other one was. I think it was another Scott Brown tune. Yeah, oh yeah. And he'd go, okay, here's how you beat match. Here's how you do this and that. Good luck. Have fun. And that was it. I just started, learning how to beat match. It was obviously a skill in and of itself, but I picked that up over time. It was actually got to one point where I didn't know what mixing down was, and while Paul was mixing the records, I would be on his decks with my headphones in, just learning how to mix.
Amazing.
I'd just get the same 2 records over and over, and I'd just be mixing and mixing. He taught me how to scratch as well, so I'd be doing a bit of that. And you know, that what happened? Yeah, so at a certain point, I got my first album advance, and I bought myself a pair of belt drives, and so I had those at home. I'd practice and practice on them. Eventually, over time, I saved up enough money to buy some CDJs, things like that. And there's nothing too exciting with the earlier days of that, apart from Paul taught me to mix, and I'd practice and practice. What he also did teach me, which I think he alluded to it, he spoke about it in his podcast, but this is the most important skill he ever taught me, was how to read a crowd.
Yeah.
And he'd always tell me you say, beat matching is part of the toolkit, but learning to read a crowd at a dance floor, that's more important. And he'd show me, if he maybe played a record and it didn't quite work as well, he'd say, just notice how the crowd sort of lost a bit of energy. Now I'll play a big song to bring them all back.
Yeah.
Even to the point of, playing too many big songs back to back and sort of get a bit syrupy and kind of repetitive. And he taught me all that other side of DJing, which, is an absolutely indispensable tool. And, fair play to him for that. And I'd say that to everyone, like reading the crowds, it's massively important. But, so that was that. And, there were some other times when I went on the road with Dougal and he'd just give me the headphones and go on then, Gams, you have a mix. And I'd, try and mix a record or a CD in a club for the first time. And this was back in the day of like some clubs didn't have booths and some sound systems had delays on them.
Yeah.
And I'd come up and absolutely butcher these mixes, my hands shaking, needle scratching across the record where I'm like trying to get it down at the start of the track. I actually remember the first time I met Watsy properly. He's like, "Oh yeah, I was there when Dougal said you can come on." I thought it was like a bring your son to work day or something. I didn't know what was going on.
I mean, did you feel nerves? Because the first DJ gig that I ever did in front of not my friends, like outside of the local area, was over in Oxford in the, I suppose, mid-90s. And I went over there with my giant box of records, and I was on, I don't remember if I was on before or after, but I was on near Ramos, who was obviously uber famous at the time, and now I'm obviously friends with him, but I didn't know him back then. He was, one of the legends to me back then. And I was so nervous that I couldn't, do you know the little clear bit on the start of a record where you have to put your needle down before the beats start? My hand was shaking so much that I couldn't get it in that little clear bit at the start. Well, what was? I mean, did you feel nervous? Because obviously you were younger than I was doing your first DJ show.
My first gig was in where is it? It was that little town sort of. It was near. I always forget the name of it. It doesn't matter. It was near Leicester.
Yeah.
It was called Organised Chaos for Wiggy.
I know Wiggy. Yeah.
Petrified. Absolutely petrified. I was going between CD and vinyl. So I started on CD, that was fine, but mixing the vinyl, it would, scare the absolute crap out of me.
Yeah.
And this was, I wasn't really reading the crowd at this point, I was just trying to keep the records in time and go for it. And it's to be honest, Gordon, I still get nervous these days.
Do you really? Because I mean, I
still get shaky hands and everything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you played we'll come to it a little bit later on when we talk about your overseas adventures. But you played to a ginormous crowd, so I mean, arguably, I'm not surprised. Actually, there is a question for you. What's more nerve-wracking, playing to a sea of people or playing to what is, perhaps you've arrived and it all looks a bit moody in there? What would you say would invoke the most nerves? A sea of people or the moody crowd that you're not sure how it would go down, but it's quite small?
They both invoke sort of a different kind of nerve in their own respects.
Yeah.
I mean, a small moody club, that's scary because if you're not playing what's going to get them moving, they can stare at you. Right?
Yeah.
It's like you'd almost rather clear the place and have people staring at you. That can be scary because it's a lot of, oh crap, it's all on me. But a big sea of people is you get this you must have had it doing Westfest and Creamfields and things like that. You get this pit in your stomach.
Yeah.
This feeling. It borders between fear and excitement. It's like the tipping point, right?
Yeah.
Because if it goes well, then that all sort of translates into pure energy. But if you maybe make a mistake that you notice and no one else does, it can really sort of sit on the back of your mind like, oh man, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, do you know, I as you know, I work with all age groups and people, teaching them and mentoring them and stuff like that, and have done for many years now. And I was with a different teacher, and I kind of nicked this from them, but the relationship between nerves and excitement are actually a very similar feeling. So what you've just said there is actually absolutely right. And actually, for people, say for example, you've got a job interview, and you don't have to be a DJ or an MC or whatever. You could be, apply this to any aspect of your life, and you're nervous about it, right? Maybe you're going to the doctors, maybe you're going for a job interview, maybe you're going out on your first date, whatever it might be. But actually, the nerves and the excitement are such a similar feeling and emotion that if you can retune your brain a little bit to think about those nerves as excitement, for a lot of people it apparently helps them. So the fact that you've just said that, actually you don't know quite how right you are. It's a very similar energy. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Well, listen. Before we zoom by it, and I forget to ask, the first ever track. Now, Dougal might have name dropped this already, so forgive me, listeners, if you already know the answer to this. But what was the first completed Dougal and Gammer track?
It was actually the first completed one. It was called Jam the Nightclub. But he actually put my name down as Reality. So the vinyl said Dougal and Reality on it.
Wow.
That was our first song. Yeah, he never really asked me what I wanted my name to be. He just put it down because he thought it sounded cool.
How cool is that? Do you know what? There's going to be so many people Googling that now that I had no idea of that. So that's even news to me. That's crazy.
Yeah. I'd say our first big track that sort of put us on was Fires in the Sky. But yeah, we were making songs for a couple of years before that even. That's
so cool. Fires in the Sky, man. Wow. That was and is a tune. And that, of course, had the mighty Jenna singing on Fires in the Sky as well. I mean, from your point of view, obviously Jenna, for those that don't know, Jenna was the original vocalist for the whole Force and Styles thing. So the original versions before all the remixes, tracks like Heart of Gold and Paradise, and all the big Force and Styles records, Jenna was the singer. From your point of view, was it weird having someone of that caliber on your? Do you know what I mean? I mean, almost you're sort of like working with one of the biggest selling vocalists in a genre of music. Did that ever cross your mind, or was it never really a thing?
Well, I didn't know, because again, I sort of discovered everything back to front, so I didn't learn who Force and Styles were or these songs until quite a while after I was working with Dougal. So at first, Jenna was just like, she's a sweetheart, Jenna was
she's lovely.
Yeah, she would do all our songs, but it wasn't till down the line was like, oh crap, you're actually like really famous as well. Oh, you did that Field of, I didn't know it was called Field of Dreams. I just remember the song that started with the piano, and I was like, oh, wait, you did that? That's so cool. Oh my god! So I got sort of starstruck.
Yeah. After
the fact.
Well, that's what I kind of wondered. Well, I suppose that's probably the best way round to do it, isn't it? To sort of find out afterwards.
Yeah. I meet these people, be chill with them, and then become starstruck and awkward later on.
Yeah. I remember that happened to me once. Actually, I was chilling with this guy. I was at V Festival, right? And this guy is backstage and he's talking to me, and we had a friend in common. So the guy that he had turned up with, I knew from years ago. So anyway, we're all chilling and we're all talking and whatever. And I just thought he was a really cool guy. We're having a bit of a laugh. There's no weirdness. And then later on, I found out that it was Jaguar Skills without his mask on.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Yeah, so I had no idea the whole time. And I'm like, he was a really cool guy, still is to this day and whatever. But I don't know if I'd known it was him from the start. I don't know if I'd have been a bit like, oh my god, you know what I mean? Like,
more nervous.
Yeah, totally. So right, we've got the journey. Boy in bedroom discovers that he's an absolute ninja at making music. He's linked up with one of the biggest DJs in rave music. He's now on the road touring with Dougal at all the different shows. He's also getting his first plays out. He's doing his thing. At what point do you think that it really started, the tide started to turn a little bit, and all of a sudden you're Gammer in your own right? Does that make sense? You're no longer, like Watsy said, bring your son to work day or whatever. At what point do you think that people started to go, yeah, I really like Gammer? Talk to me about that sort of transition.
So going back to the DJing side of it, because I always thought DJing looked cool, right? And so I learned to DJ, and I could scratch and da. And then when YouTube sort of became a thing, and MySpace, I discovered these DJs, Kutsky, sort of them, shout out Kutsky, James Avila and Andy Whitby, and I'd watch them like push the technology to its absolute limits. They do all these crazy things while mixing. I mean, Andy Whitby especially, put two tracks together and start, bouncing the bass line with the delay effect and using the roll and all these things. And what I loved about this side of technical DJing was I felt like you could do these things to a song, but the crowd could still appreciate what you're doing, even if they couldn't see what you were doing.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I thought, yeah, this is brilliant. I really want to get into this. So I saved and I bought myself the top CDJs at the time. I got the new Pioneer mixer, the big black one when it first dropped. And I sort of started practicing and editing songs and figuring out the technology to see if I could make, mixing more exciting than just mixing one song into the other.
Yeah.
And this actually had a knock-on effect to my producing, because suddenly for the first time ever, it was like a light bulb moment. I think it's probably what Paul was already teaching me, but it wasn't quite going in.
Yeah.
Is that I started making the songs, then I really started making songs with the dance floor in mind. I started learning, about the less is more. So, my production at the time, I would say, was, not to be negative, might have been going up its own arse a little bit.
Right.
But I suddenly started stripping things back, making songs that were more like inspired by like hard house at the time and other genres. And so not that I ever really planned to be a solo artist, but I had the software at home and thought, oh, actually I could, me and Dougal are making our anthems and stuff. I could just make a song. I could just make a song like this and play it out. I made I think like this song called Ripping that had like an electro bass line.
Yeah.
So I just make this and start playing it out. And that kind of that, I don't know if that's when I started sort of appearing on the map kind of thing, but I definitely felt this renewed excitement for playing out in clubs, and I'd noticed that more people were turning up, and that I wanted that thing where the crowd would scream at the mix, and do a little thing with a vocal, they'd all cheer for that. And that was, I feel like, the turning point. And then obviously I don't know if you're going to touch on it or not, but you and me came together because we both kind of wanted to try different things, and then it really just took off from there.
Well, that's what I was gonna. I was actually gonna. I didn't want to sort of turn it into a Gammer and Whizkid thing, but do you what's your memories of us first sort of linking? I mean, obviously, you've just said there that you were being creative, you were starting to make solo records, you wanted to, up your DJ game, which you absolutely did with Cherries On, by the way, and Hundreds and Thousands Sprinkles. You were phenomenal and still are. Do you remember our first sort of bits and bobs? Do you remember where the sort of start of our, if you want to call it a partnership, was? What's your memories of that?
Yeah, well, I couldn't drive for the longest time. And I remember I went with you from one show to another. You were driving your MR2 at the time, I believe.
Oh wow!
Yeah. And we just got to talking. We were just talking about this and that and the other. And he said, "Look, I'd always wanted to try maybe doing songs like this and songs that were, I know MC tracks are starting to become a thing at the time, and I think we wanted to try something that wasn't just a Gamma track with Whizzkid on it, but what if we started actually trying to do like proper songs approached in a different way, and we got together and we did. I know Scream was our first one,
and
then then I want to say maybe could I know Could Be Real was like our first big one, and then We Are the Vampires, and of course We Killed the Rave was our biggest by a flipping country mile, and that it just kind of started as casually as the other stuff, like let's get together and see what happens. And I think it was, again, it was, you could just, we were all turning up to clubs and playing records. We had an MC, but for you and me, I remember I'd call you and be like, actually, what if you said this on the mic and then I did this? And you go, but what if you then did this and then I did this, and we turn it into more of a show. And it was mad that we had all the tools in front of us, but I felt like I was on autopilot for a long time, just going with the motions. But I know the creativity you and me brought together, and not to say I'm spending an hour bigging us up, but it just, we put our creative minds together and tried to create something that was new, but still worked in the context of what we were about.
Totally. I mean, we used to ring each other with crazy ideas. Like, I've got two random memories. Like, I remember we were playing, I don't remember what the brand was, but I assume it would have been Raver Baby or Uproar or one of the big hardcore brands. And we were going to do a show at the Fruit Club in Swindon. And I remember ringing you up because I'd heard a 50 Cent song, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if you get the 50 Cent beat and I'll do the rap, and I wrote a whole intro and you produced a whole little edit of a 50 Cent song, and we did it as our intro, and it probably lasted 30 seconds to a minute, if that, but and nobody probably remembers it until I've just said it now. But it was those sort of exciting things. I also remember we were doing a show in Birmingham at the HMV Institute, or the O2 as it may now be called, I think. And you rang me up and said, "Gordy, I found this thing, and I can trigger the song on my phone. So will you make a big thing? And I'll press the button on my phone." And I remember you triggering a song somehow. Maybe it was with like a record box app or something. I don't know what you had done, but you held your phone in the air and you were pressing the button. The crowd just, like, there was jaws wobbling all over the front row because they didn't know what was going on. It was just, it was such a fun time. And I think that's where what you said's really made me smile, because I hold that time in such. It was one of my favourite times of my career, and you're absolutely right. We just used to have crazy creative ideas and just see where it took us. And lucky for us, we ended up with the biggest hardcore song in the world for 1 year. So it was just nuts. Well, listen, I don't want to turn this into a big Gammer and Whizkid thing, because I'm sure people know all about that. Obviously, another thing that we should probably mention briefly is that we did a mix called Quirk Out. You had some amazing ideas on the marketing and that. And the first run, I think, we basically, for those that don't know, we did a mixtape together where Gamma creatively, in the way that only Gamma can, live mix this amazing 20-40 minute mix of all his favourite tunes at the time, with scratching and acapellas and crazy double drops and all the rest of it. And then I wrote raps to that mix, and Gamma produced the raps to sound as if it was like a hip-hop mixtape. So we've got this sort of hardcore fusion between uber talented DJ with MC with specific lyrics that have written, and not uncoupled with that, we thought of this whole marketing strategy, and Gamma set up, we had stickers done that people could do. We released a hashtag Quirk Out. And I think the first one, when we put it live, it literally disappeared off the website in about 20 seconds or something like that.
Seconds, yeah.
It literally went so fast that we had to do a second run, which in turn went in seconds again. It was just nuts, wasn't it? I mean, that whole Gammer and Whizkid thing really did just do the rounds. But that aside, and you can go and find that, by the way. I'm sure it's on the internet somewhere if you want to go and listen to it. But I mean, you've gone from bedroom to now being one of the most creative DJs in the world. And of course, along with that comes awards and all the rest of it. What was it like the year that you won Best DJ, man? Because Dougal's had it. Obviously, he spoke about it. Darren Styles, DJ Psy. I mean, the list continues of number one DJ. Scott Brown. What was that like for you, man?
It didn't feel real. I will say, did not feel real at all. I think I couldn't even. It was the first time I had a mic thrown in my face, and I didn't even know what to say. I don't think I said anything. I think from my memory, I stood there. Storm put the mic to me, and I couldn't say anything, and he just sort of gave it, everyone big up Gamma. It was a wild time because Raver Baby and Evolution were absolutely on top, and rightfully so. So to come along as what felt like the underdog to that, I even to this day, I don't even know how to say it. Just did not feel real. It felt unreal.
Was the decision to sort of, I hate to use the term, but break America a thing? Did you sort of think, right, I need to go and be like Robbie Williams and smash it, because that's what bands do, right? They have some success in the UK and then they go, right, we're going to try and launch in America, and some do and some don't. Was that a thing, or did it just sort of happen, or how did you become not just the UK's number one, but also, doing all these amazing shows everywhere?
So I think it's interesting how my journey through music almost like it relates to my age, because all these things we spoke about, I was very, very young. I came into the music very young, and as I got older, my music taste went from strictly hardcore and dance music to I started discovering like rap music and trap music and dubstep and drum and bass and all these other different, especially like when Skrillex dropped. Sonically, his sound was unlike anything else that existed at the time. And then that kind of inspired a whole generation of new sounds. And I was, we were all dabbling with trying to, whether it was for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. I can only speak for myself, actually. I was dabbling with bringing some of that into my music for no other reason than I found it exciting. And it maybe didn't translate so well over here, but me and Darren Styles we just happened to get this gig for what I later learned was for Insomniac, who run EDC and everything. And we played this hardstyle stage, and we done a remix at the time for Porter Robinson, and we played that and we did our set in it. It surprisingly went down well, but what was interesting about playing music in America is that for them it was a new thing. It was once again a young audience who rave music was completely fresh to them, and there was this real raw energy there. And so and I found that really exciting. It reminded me of that feeling the first time I walked through the doors of Sanctuary. And so I never made a conscious effort to necessarily take America, but I'm not going to deny that my attention turned towards it, because suddenly it was like this, I know it can be seen that I sold out the UK scene or whatever, but I just was just following where the creativity was. And so I started making hardcore songs that were a bit shorter and punchier and maybe more hardstyle focused to kind of appeal to that audience, because I truthfully, I wanted to be part of all of it. I never wanted to leave the UK scene and just do America. I wanted to just continue to grow and go where the creative trail went. And as I did more of these American stages, I noticed that I could get away with playing a bit more. So I started playing a bit of dubstep and stuff. Again, for no other reason than I liked it. And as a DJ, I was able to be a bit more free and creative. I talk about my relationship with music going through my age and everything. I grew up alongside the music. And so I'm not going to deny that for whatever reason, things blew up in the States, but I became embittered with real bitter about certain things in the UK, but rather than deal with it like an adult, I just completely was like, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to do America. I'm not going to do UK. And I guess for a while I did turn my back on it for the wrong reasons. But, I have to be quite humble about that. That did happen, and I'm not particularly proud of it. But yeah, I chased the US stuff mostly to follow the creative passion, and that, then I did one song called The Drop, and things really took off from there. But hardcore was always in my heart. I remember playing at an Excision festival. Now, Excision is like as dubstep as you get.
Yeah.
And I would go to that show, and I was still playing hardcore tracks. I was still playing Darren Styles tracks. I was still playing stuff with pianos and chipmunk vocals. And I will die on this hill. It still went down incredibly. It may be a stretch to say it's the best reaction, but look, you play like a happy hardcore remix of Frozen at a dubstep festival, and everybody's singing it.
Yeah.
They may not be headbanging on the drop, but they are throwing their hands up and having time in their lives, and that is still like the embodiment of rave music and what I've always loved.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Yeah.
Well said.
I went off on a tangent there.
No, well said, man. Well said. And I like, I'm sure everyone listening to this admire your honesty. And listen, everyone feels disjointed. I too have had times where I've just, not been feeling it, and and I think that's normal. That's human, right? So
yeah.
No, shout out to you for bringing that up. Listen, you're playing these big shows, the songs are getting big, and I mean, this has led you to working with some of the biggest, God, I hate this word, but the biggest EDM DJs and producers in the world. I know, and when I'm saying that, I'm talking about Steve Aoki, Kill the Noise, Chainsmoke. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, what was that like? I mean, did you ever sort of think,
the first time I went to Steve Aoki's house it was unreal, absolutely unreal. Here's a genuine celebrity, and he's just there, playing chess with his buddy whilst we're talking about music, and then we're just dicking around on stuff. And then I go to a show in Vegas and he plays Zombie, and yeah, it just goes completely surreal. First time I met DJ Snake as well. And he's coming up to me going, "Oh my God, it's such an honor to meet you." I'm like, "Me? You're flipping Mr. Turn Down for what?" I did stuff with I've worked with Chainsmokers and a few other people as well.
It's just crazy, man.
I never thought, but it all stems from because the drop was big, but I'd argue that the Zombie flip was, that's the one that. I mean, Chainsmokers closing out Ultra with a happy hardcore remix of Zombie was like one for the books, if you ask me. It had gone from being the dark horse of music to now it's just so accepted.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy. I don't. You must think I've got loads of cool stuff to say about it, but I just don't even know. I think back on it, and it's just nuts that all that stuff happened. From music, from the thing I always wanted to do. Yeah,
from the boy that decided to have a go on Reason. It's amazing.
Yeah, from the boy who decided to have a go on Reason. Yeah.
It's so cool. It really is. So, I suppose, there's loads of pockets I want to take you down, Matt. As always, it's the same with Hicksy and Dougal. I could just spiral off into loads of different questions, but I'm mindful of time. I'm mindful of your poor little dog that is very unhappy that you're doing a podcast right now. So I'm gonna bring it forward to present day, right? Still touring. Obviously, I know you've just recently, a couple of weeks ago, come back from touring Asia. But interestingly, I've noticed, partly because we're getting booked on a lot of the same shows together, I've noticed that you are doing more and more shows in the UK, which is wonderful.
Yeah, so we talk about growing up. At a certain point, personal life, faced all my demons, yada, yada, yada. And I started taking UK shows again. And it's been great. Working with you again has been absolutely amazing. And, for all these cool trips around the world, I love Asia, I love Australia, I love America. I genuinely love traveling. I absolutely love it. And I love getting to perform in front of all these different cultures. But, when you've got everybody singing and having a good time, no one does it like the UK. And that's a fact.
Yeah.
It's an absolute fact.
Well, that's probably because, this is where a lot of that music stems from, right? This is the roots. It's been part of our culture forever. I mean, I think it was Calvin Harris that was talking about the Brit Awards, and he said, look, there's an award for country, there's an award for hip hop, there's blah, 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 blah. And he said, but yet dance music is the biggest genre in the UK. And it's not recognised for it.
You can't, even house music now, it's all pianos and happy vocals.
Absolutely, man. It stems from the UK. And that's not to say that music from other parts of the world are rubbish. Of course they're not. They're phenomenal. But the fact of the matter is that, it all started from those early... late 80s, early 90s vibes, right? That's where it all stems. But I mean, I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of the ravers, whatever their genre, in saying that it's absolutely great to see you back in the UK shows again. We have dearly missed you. I remember I was absolutely devastated for the times when you weren't around. I always respected and understood your decisions, as I'm sure many did. Some didn't, of course, but I always did. And the fact that you're back now doing the damn thing is amazing, man. I love it.
I appreciate it.
No worries. Well, okay, so what's next then? So we've talked about the past. We've talked about present day. What happens tomorrow, man? What's next for Gamma?
I don't really know. I'm so content with everything now. Complacency might actually be my biggest obstacle at the moment. I started once again I've gotten super back into DJing. I bought the latest setup. I've figured all that out. I've been doing little videos for social media, as you know, and I've also, for all these high, this is actually an interesting point. For all these high times I had traveling, I completely lost myself for the longest time. Totally. I think I started getting so drawn into the high flying world that I totally forgot why I got into this. Suddenly I'm having panic attacks and going down the rabbit hole trying to recreate the success of one song. And I think I was so addicted to the fame and the glory and the kudos that it killed my creativity for the longest time. And I'm not kidding when I say from maybe 2017 to now, 2024.
Wow.
But I'm in a really good place now. I've got myself a nice home studio here. And I'm just enjoying making music. Not necessarily to finish or put out, but it doesn't matter because I'm just sitting here messing around with stuff. And I'm just enjoying it. I don't know where that's going to take me. It is all rave and hardcore focused, I will say, for anyone wondering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just I don't know what the future holds, but I feel like I'm almost back to where I was all those years ago, just enjoying the process.
Yeah,
a long period of reflection and looking inwards.
Listen, I get it, man, because my head turned, perhaps not to the scale that yours did, but my head turned, and I too am enjoying doing the shows again. There was a period where I was thinking, maybe I could do other things. But once you sort of revisit that love and that passion and where it all started, I think that's a healthy thing. And the fact that you've bought a new setup and you've fallen in love with DJing and producing, and that's everything that kind of got you started on this journey. So I think it's absolutely the natural and the right thing to do. And subsequently, it's no surprise to any of us that you feel happier for it, man. And long may it continue.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
No worries, man. I mean, Dougal spoke at some length. You guys have got some stuff in the works. I know that we've talked about doing a cheeky little Gammer and Whizkid track at some point soon. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Forward ever, backward never, I think Helter Skelter used to say, right?
Yeah, it's a good time for rave music.
Definitely. Well, listen, before I let you go and take that lovely little dog of yours out for a walk, I've got a couple of little sections that we do on every single podcast. I know that you are well versed in the podcast, so this may not come as a surprise to you, But I'm going to ask the same question that I do for every single guest, regardless of who they are, where they're from, what music they play, or how old they are. Right. So for you, I'm going to do an international twist on this question, though. Right.
Nice.
You've just come off of the plane from Japan to Taiwan. I'm making this up. There may not even be a plane, but let's imagine that there is. You've got
That's an exact route I did last year. That's so weird.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That's an exact route I did.
Okay, good. Right, so you get off the plane. You've got a minute while the bags come out, and you have to collect them or whatever. And you're milling around in the, I want to say shop, like a newsagent style shop, right? And in there, you fancy a snack, a little bit of a pick me up, ready for the taxi to the hotel or wherever it is you're going next. And in front of you, you've got sweets and chocolate and delicacies from all over the world. I want to say, I guess, if you're in Taiwan or Japan, what are you reaching for, man? If you are indeed reaching for something, what are you getting?
Do you know what? I have to say, I love that you curveballed this question because I had an answer ready, thinking you were going to ask me about like a UK service
the petrol station.
Yeah, you caught me up. But I know exactly what I'm having. I'm in Asia. I'm hungry. I want a snack for the car. I am getting a 7-Eleven egg and mayonnaise sandwich. Trust me, 7-Eleven in Asia hits completely different. Anyone who knows what I'm talking about, that Japanese mayonnaise and the egg and the soft, fluffy white bread, it is a fucking game changer.
Shout out to 7-Eleven. What about a drink, man? Are you getting some, like, I believe, are you getting some soda to go with that, or what are you having?
Again, if I'm in Asia, I am getting. If I'm in Asia, I'm getting an iced coffee in a can. No specific brand, just an iced coffee in a can. Okay, fair. Well, but I'd probably join you on that, actually. And what about if you've popped? Oh no, I suppose if you bought a sandwich, this question. Right, okay. You've eaten your sandwich. You're back at your hotel. You've had a little sleep and a wash up, and you've got all your stuff ready, and your USB sticks and your headphones and all the rest of the stuff. But you've got a bit of time to kill, and you decide to explore the local area. And whilst you're out, all of the normal restaurants are shut down. They're closed for whatever reason. Maybe there's some sort of religious holiday. Maybe there's been some sort of scare. Whatever reason, right? And all that's open is fast food restaurants dotted around your hotel. Which one are you going to go to for a snack, if any? It's got to be McDonald's. Is it? Yes. It's got to be McDonald's. I know it's the most vanilla answer, but I mean it's. But in that exact scenario, does anything else work quite as well? No. Well, do you know what I always say? Because my wife is a McDonald's hater, as are a lot of people. Dougal was a McDonald's hater. Mickey Modell was a McDonald's hater. My wife is a McDonald's hater, right? But the one thing I will say about McDonald's is you know what you're getting. Oh, absolutely. The consistency is there. Yeah, it really is. It might be a bland consistency, but it's there. You know what you are getting, man. My kids would absolutely live off it if they could. So, yeah, man. Shout out to McDonald's. Right. Last section before I let you go and have a wonderful day in what is a sunny day today, actually. Not sure when you're listening to this podcast. You might be listening to it in the height of snow at winter. But right now, as this is recorded, it's a beautiful day. And this last section is called Highly Recommended. Let me just play you this. Oh, yes, this is highly recommended. And what we do here is we ask you guys, the guests, things that you would like to recommend to the listeners. And actually, this is so popular. I get DMs, I get emails. It's absolutely mental how many people love these recommendations. So, DJ Gammer, for your first recommendation, I would like you to recommend to the wonderful Pod Noodle listeners a film. What film would you recommend? So it's only one I watched recently, but I've watched it about 3 times now and I love it. It's a movie called Whiplash. Okay. It only really has 2 main roles in it. One of them's J.K. Simmons, who plays a psychotic music teacher. And the other main actor, I can't remember his name, but he's the drum student in his class. And really, it's just about the pursuit of perfection. But it is I've got to tell you, if you got time tonight, put it on Netflix, put it on, you will not be disappointed. It is a work of art. It's funny, it's serious, it's shocking. It's just great. It's just incredible. It's just a music teacher and a drummer, and J.K. Simmons, absolutely incredible in it. The character he plays is just brilliant. Watch Whiplash without a doubt. It's incredible. I
think that's probably the heartiest, most sincere and energy-fueled recommendation of a film any guest has ever given us on. I'm certainly saying, are you part of the marketing campaign for this film?
No, not at all. But it is, I mean, before I saw it, I was going to say Akira, but yeah, Whiplash. It's got to be Whiplash.
Amazing. I will certainly add that to my list, as I'm sure loads of people will as well. This is a bit of a 50-50 question, because I know that not everyone does. I do, which is why I ask it. But do you have a book that you would recommend people to read?
I do. It is called 15 Minutes to Happiness.
Ooh.
It is written by I forget his name. He's a therapist. He also has a podcast called 5 Minutes to Happiness, and it's just little little positive life tips, just like how to appreciate being in the moment, and not taking the little things for granted, and just this. I want to say this industry, it's actually just life in general these days, we know is tough for many different reasons. Mm-hmm. Our view of the world is completely skewed, and it's easy to there's never been an easier time to feel down and worried about stuff. But like this book, just, you pick it up, you read a chapter, and you just feel better.
Amazing.
Minutes to Happiness. It's great.
For the last recommendation, you've got to give me 2 albums. And the first album that I would like a recommendation for the listeners is a non-rave album. So any genre you want, but it can't be dance music.
Oh, I mean, easy. Look, it's controversy aside, and I can't say I'm a fan these days, but I have to acknowledge the impact this album had on me as an artist and a person. Kanye West, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. It showed me vulnerability in music. You know, how you can have music so powerful that makes you feel something. Where a person, willfully breaks himself down. Again, totally putting the character aside here. Not really a fan these days, but I have to acknowledge what that album, the effect it had on me. Without a doubt.
Kanye West, I'm with you, bro. Whether people like it or not, I'm with you, man. I'm wearing the Kanye shoes, and I'm ready to go. Right, okay. And what about a dance music album, a rave album? Do you have anything in that genre?
I don't have a favorite rave album. I've got a favorite electronic album.
Go for it.
I don't actually have I guess what my favorite electronic album is actually Audio Video Disco by Justice.
You've mentioned Justice to me in the past, yes.
Again, had a lot of impact on Kanye and Justice, like songs we've done, songs I've done. The influence is all there.
Yeah.
Very, very openly. It's like a combination between French electronic disco, and oddly like classic rock, which is the sort of stuff my dad would listen to when I was growing up. So there's almost a bit of a nostalgic vibe there. But yeah, that album, just I'm all about it.
Brilliant. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was
Oh yes, this is highly recommended
from the legend that is DJ Gammer. Matt, I just want to say thank you so much, firstly, for agreeing to do the podcast. I know you don't really do podcasts. I know it's not entirely your vibe to do this kind of thing. It means so much to me, but more than that, it means so much to all the listeners who have watched you grow, man. I mean, I don't know if you realize, but aside from our friendship and your friendship with Dougal, outside of that, the people who don't know you, who just listen to your music, listen to your mixes, maybe your song has a special meaning to their life or whisks them back to falling in love or being at college or a hard time that helped them get them through. Your journey in hardcore and rave music, people have watched you grow up, man. You're part of the essence of our culture, of our scene, of our vibe, whatever word you want to use. And it's so inspiring to listen to how you've grown, how you've developed, and the fact that you are, turning your creative hand back to the UK and you're falling in love with DJing again. On behalf of all the ravers, thank you for everything that you give creatively to the world, because, I'm going to sound like a right hippie, but it really is a beautiful thing, man. I'm not sure you're quite aware of the beauty of which you create, man. So big up for that, man.
Oh, my God. I don't know what to say. I'm blushing. I'm honoured.
Thank you.
I really, that means a lot. Thank you so much. Can I just give a quick shout out to my mum, by the way? She gave Dougal that CD. That put me on the map, and I know she'd appreciate it.
Actually, before we go, because at times, as I've mentioned, we could hear your beautiful little dog in the background. It's the first time we've ever had.
Sorry.
Don't apologise at all. But as your dog has guested a little bit on the Pod Noodle, who is our third guest?
That was a Whizzkid. He's a dash hound. He's just turned a year old 2 days ago, and he's an absolute sweetheart. But he loves a cuddle. That's why he's crying, because he just wants me to hold him.
Shout out to Whizzkid.
Shout out Whizzkid. Love you, boy. Big
ups, man. Have a lovely day, bro. Thank you so much.
No worries. All the best. Thanks. Shout out everyone. Love you. Bye.
If you enjoyed what you heard here today, then please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if you have any comments, suggestions, or anything else, ping us an email on thepodnoodle@wzkd.co.uk.